Hi, healers. I want to talk a little bit more about these toxic relationships and what it looks like to leave them. So I'm talking today or right now about leaving toxic marriage. Specifically, I'm talking about marriage. So if you're not interested in that, you can click off. So when you walk away from a toxic marriage, you can find yourself being judged because people tend to feel sad when marriages end. So this is the place they begin their thought pattern. So what are they thinking? Well, whenever a marriage ends, people are thinking about the children, the family, the old times, how significant their own family was, how significant the marriage of their own parents were, how they felt if their parents were together, if they were separated, if they were divorced, or if they had never were married. It goes right to the deepest, darkest wounds that a person has. So it's as if when you get a divorce or you separate your marriage, depending how long it is as well. Short marriages, there might not be so much of conflict that happens in everybody who seems to be around you. But with a long-term marriage and a family breaking up or separating or divorcing, this seems to affect anybody who actually maybe attended the wedding or knew the children, maybe some coaches, teachers, church members, family, cousins, family. It just seems like everybody has something to say about the breakup of your marriage. And it's not solely based on what the facts they have about your marriage. They're all coming from a place of, I'm going to be as bold to say they're coming from a traumatic place because they're using the breakup of a marriage and relating it to another breakup of another marriage they know of. Even if it didn't actually affect them, it could have been that it affected their best friend or their cousin or their mother, somebody, and they were very close to somebody who was affected by the breakup of another marriage, causing them to actually feel some kind of traumatic experience. And when they hear about your marriage ending, it triggers a response associating with a traumatic experience that they recall in their past from a marriage that was broken up. So when somebody finds out your marriage is over, that's usually where they come from. It's very rare for someone to say, well, my aunt finally divorced her husband who was verbally abusive, um, financially neglecting, sexually abusive. And we all knew that he had the wandering eye. And we were so glad when she finally divorced him and she ended up happy and her kids were free from the chaos and the anxiety of being in an abusive marriage. That is rarely what somebody would say, but this is often the case. But even that person is going to reflect back when they hear of a marriage ending to a trigger, probably before they go back and reflect on, wait a minute, that's going to be the second case scenario. I do recall some marriages end and it actually works out better for those who are involved. So I just want to say that when you get a divorce, expect people to reflect on past bad experiences of divorce. And usually people associate their breakups with a lot of pain. So they assume the children are in pain, everyone's in pain. They may see one of the spouses in pain. So that causes them, and if they're empathetic at all, they're going to feel some of the pain as well. They're going to know what it felt like to be in a marriage that broke up as a child and feel remorse for the marriage breaking up and for the children. So we have to understand this. So a good way to do this is to pull away and not get these people involved, which is what I did. I pulled away from everybody. I didn't want to get anybody involved. But now you might have a spouse who pulls everybody in. And not only do you leave the relationship, try to keep your kids in a safe healing predicament. This other spouse brings in everybody you ever known and slaughters you because they're in pain. And when people are in pain, they react painfully, causing everybody you know in pain. So now you're leaving this marriage. And by the way, If you do it right and you do it by the books and you do it how it says, you give fair warning, which I did. You let them know. You live as housemates. You separate everything. You take the steps. But still, it depends where the spouse is coming from. You may have gone into the marriage and tending to never get a divorce, but you may have come across many things that have showed you through the years that you are getting ill because of your marriage. Any woman's magazine you pick up will say, how healthful is your relationship? On a 1 to 10, where are you? Okay, I'm a -1 over here. And you go for years trying to get up to at least a 5 so you can live, but it doesn't work. You can't get the other spouse to get in on it. They don't want to hear anything, but you've been speaking to them the whole entire time. So when you get out on the other side of this and you realize very few people have read some of these women's health books and magazines to fix a relationship, and very few men and even pastors know what it's like to be a woman on the receiving end of a verbally, emotionally, physically, sexually, financially abusive relationship. Now, I didn't mention physically because if you don't have an outright black eye, you haven't been abused. So I'm not even going to go there. Okay. I didn't have a black eye. So, what do we do next? Well, we get to watch everybody we ever loved get pulled in and lied to about yourself as you're trying to heal, which may cause you to slow down significantly in your healing journey, but you can't quit. You just have to keep going. You just have to keep going. You're going to watch everybody you ever loved now feel sad that you left this spouse who was abusing you for years. Instead of supporting you, helping you, coming alongside of you, they're going to stand alongside of the abuser. And I just want you to be prepared for it because I'll be honest with you, I wasn't. Because I read all those magazines and books and thought I was going to be free, have some people on my side, and even walked away without rubbing his name in the mud, hoping that he would, want the best for the kids and move along slowly. He started a relationship right away. I said nothing. The kids got together with this new person. I mean, there wasn't anything he did that reflected that he cared about anybody but himself in the way that he carried things out. I went home, tried to make a home for my kids, try to heal, try to get my kids to heal, and it was in constant conflict to what he was doing. And all I was trying to do was heal. I had autoimmune disease. At least half of my children have autoimmune disease. We had a very chaotic, loud, frustrating marriage. The best thing to do was to leave. Okay. There was nothing else that could be said. And there's no need. Even right now, as I talk about it, you may hear some frustration in my voice because I started this process 5 years ago and it's still going for some reason. So I just want you to understand this is a process. And unfortunately, if your spouse doesn't want to go alongside of you and have their own healing journey, there might be more of a hurting journey they're having. And they're going to bring the people that you love down this hurting journey. Where do they get the idea that you can't leave this marriage or you've done something wrong? Well, in my case, they never believe that you should get a divorce. But in that predicament, they also believe they have an ownership to their spouse. They're somewhat patriarch like, and they believe that a man is a lead, the head of a woman, and therefore makes decisions for the woman, which causes the man to think a woman is incapable of making their own decisions. So when you step out to make your own decision in someone whose thinking is like this, and they believe they possess you and that you can never leave, it's almost like as if it's their vehicle. They can drive it where they want, they can take it where they want, they can leave it where they want, they can clean it, they can wash it. They don't have to. They can fix it. They can do whatever they want with it. It's always going to be there. It's their vehicle. It's at their beck and call. Imagine being a woman in a marriage where your spouse looks at you that way. And this is something that's going on. It's still going on. So we can be honest about the fact that this has been going on since the beginning of time. And women do it as well with their husbands. They literally think their 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 husband is at their beck and call and is going to answer to all of their demands and be there for them no matter what. And it's just not the case. People have to evaluate themselves. They have to look what God wants them to do. When you are in these situations, you can't even do what God wants you to do because you have to answer this person who thinks you're some kind of a possession. So when you go forward in the direction that God's asking you to go in, they're actually very resistant. So there's just constant resistance. And this is what causes autoimmune disease. The fact that you were made to do certain things, but you are always being resistant when you act upon. So when you go ahead and decide that you no longer can move forward in this marriage and you go forward that way, the whole time they think it's impossible because how could you be doing this? You're supposed to be married forever. You belong to them. They're in charge. They're the man. And so, I mean, this process starts for some families in traditions, and I'm, from up north and everything, and so things are still like that, very traditional Catholic and things like this, where women go from living with their father to living with their husband. And as if a woman can't make a decision to live alone, can't make a decision to leave her husband and move out alone. And you can have all the preparedness in the world. Show everybody you're doing this step for step. Have the funds for 2 years to take care of yourself so you can heal. And still be looked at as if, what is she doing? And I just want to let you know that's what's out there. That's what you're up against. So if you leave a marriage for someone, for a spouse who believe you can never leave the marriage, they are going to take you through it. In their head, they just cannot reconcile the fact that you can make a decision to leave marriage. And I wasn't prepared for that. And so what we call this when you leave the marriage is it's post separation abuse, which was a new term to me. All of the preparedness I did, I was not prepared for separation abuse. So I'm gonna get back. I'm gonna talk about post separation abuse next time. Okay, thanks, guys.